moment police sirens echoed to the quiet neighborhood, Daniel Carter knew something was terribly wrong. What he didn't realize yet was that the person who had called the police had already unlocked his front door without permission. This was about to unfold into a situation no one in the neighborhood could have predicted. Daniel Carter had been living in the same house for nearly 6 years. It was a modest home on a calm suburban street, where neighbors greeted each other during evening walks, and kids rode their bikes along the sidewalks. Daniel valued peace more than anything. He worked long hours, but every evening he returned home to a familiar routine, watering the plants on his porch, checking the mail, and sitting down with his wife, Emily, to talk about their day. But recently, the neighborhood had elected a new HOA president. Her name was Karen Whitmore. Karen believed rules were meant to be enforced strictly, and she quickly built a reputation for issuing warnings over the smallest details: grass that was slightly too long, trash bins left visible for too many hours, or a car parked just a little outside the driveway. Most residents chose to stay quiet. But Karen had begun paying special attention to Daniel's house. At first, it was small notices taped to his mailbox. Then came warning letters. Eventually, it escalated into something much more serious. One quiet afternoon, Karen stood outside Daniel's home, holding a master key provided by the HOA for emergency situations. What she decided to do next would shock the entire neighborhood. Because Karen was no longer just filing complaints. She was about to unlock Daniel's front door and call the police. She stood on his porch with her arms crossed, staring at the door like it was a challenge. The neighborhood was silent that afternoon. Daniel's car was in the driveway, and to Karen, that meant the house was empty. For weeks, she had convinced herself that Daniel was violating HOA rules. She believed the home was being used improperly, even though no one else had noticed anything unusual. Still, Karen was certain she was protecting the community, or at least that's what she told herself. Holding the HOA master key, she unlocked the door. The click of the lock echoed in the silence as she stepped inside cautiously. The house looked completely normal. A clean living room, family photos on the walls. Nothing suggested any violation. Still, Karen pulled out her phone and called the police, calmly explaining that she suspected a homeowner was breaking HOA rules and that she had entered to investigate. Within minutes, sirens could be heard approaching. Karen felt confident she had done the right thing. What she didn't know was that Daniel and his wife were already on their way home. And when they arrived, the scene waiting for them would leave Karen completely speechless, because one of the officers stepping out of that police car was someone she never expected to see. Daniel's car slowly turned onto the street, just as 2 police vehicles pulled up in front of his house. His stomach dropped immediately as flashing lights reflected off his windows. Neighbors had already stepped outside, watching quietly as the scene unfolded. Daniel parked quickly and stepped out. "What's going on?" he asked, looking from the officers to his open front door. Karen stepped forward confidently. "I reported a possible violation," she said calmly. "I had reason to believe something suspicious was happening inside." Daniel stared at her in disbelief. "You unlocked my door." Karen lifted the small key slightly, as if that justified everything. But before Daniel could respond, the passenger door of one of the police cars opened. An officer stepped out. The moment Karen saw her, the confidence drained from her face, because the officer adjusting her uniform and walking toward the house wasn't a stranger. It was Emily Carter, Daniel's wife. She had just finished her shift at the station when the call came in, and now she stood there in full police uniform, calmly looking at Karen. The entire neighborhood fell silent. Karen suddenly realized something important. The situation she had started was no longer under her control, and the next few minutes were about to change everything. Emily walked toward the porch with calm confidence built from years of experience. Her badge caught the sunlight as she approached. Daniel gave her a small nod, clearly relieved to see her. Emily first looked at the open front door, then at Karen. "Can someone explain what happened here?" she asked calmly. Karen straightened her posture, trying to regain control. "I'm the HOA president," she said. "I used the association's emergency access key to investigate a possible violation." Emily raised an eyebrow. "Did you receive a request for emergency assistance?" Karen hesitated. "Well, not exactly. Was anyone inside the house in danger?" Karen slowly shook her head. Emily glanced briefly at the other officer before turning back to her. "In this state," she said calmly, "entering someone's home without a clear emergency can create serious legal problems." Karen's confidence began to crumble. Neighbors watching from their lawns could feel the tension rising. The situation Karen believed she controlled had suddenly become something entirely different, and what happened next would determine whether this ended quietly or in court. Over the next few days, the neighborhood buzzed with quiet conversations. Everyone had heard what happened. The HOA president unlocking someone's door, calling the police, and then discovering the homeowner's wife was the officer who responded. Daniel didn't want conflict, but this couldn't simply be ignored. Emily explained that even HOA authority had limits. Private homes were still private property. Soon, Daniel consulted a legal advisor. The details were reviewed carefully. The HOA's emergency key policy, Karen's decision to enter the home, and the official police report from that afternoon. Every piece of information pointed to the same conclusion. The situation had gone too far. Meanwhile, Karen began receiving emails from concerned residents. Homeowners started asking questions about the HOA's authority. Some wondered if the rules had been pushed beyond their purpose. For the first time since becoming president, Karen realized something unsettling. The community she believed supported her was starting to see things differently. And soon, everything would be discussed openly at the next neighborhood meeting. A meeting where the truth about that afternoon would finally come out. The meeting that week was more crowded than anyone could remember. Nearly every homeowner showed up. Some sat quietly, others whispered among themselves. Karen stood at the front with the HOA board, but the confidence she once carried was gone. Daniel and Emily sat calmly among the residents. When the meeting began, several homeowners raised concerns about privacy and HOA authority. One neighbor admitted feeling uncomfortable knowing someone could unlock their door without warning. Another questioned the limits of the emergency key policy. Karen tried to explain her actions. She insisted she believed she was protecting the neighborhood, but the atmosphere had changed. People weren't just listening anymore. They were questioning. Finally, Emily stood up. She didn't speak as Daniel's wife. She spoke as someone who understood the law. Calmly, she explained that emergency access policies were meant for real danger, not assumptions. The room fell silent. For the first time, Karen fully understood what was happening. The authority she had used so confidently was now being examined by the very community she represented. And soon, a final decision about her leadership would be made. A month later, the neighborhood held a vote. It wasn't about punishment. It was about trust. Residents wanted leadership that respected both rules and personal boundaries. When the results were announced, no one was surprised. Karen stepped down as HOA president. A new board was elected, promising to review and improve community policies. Daniel and Emily returned to their normal routine. Quiet evenings on the porch, simple conversations after work. Slowly, the neighborhood returned to the peaceful place it had once been. But something had changed. Residents now understood how important it was to question authority when boundaries were crossed. And Karen learned a lesson she would never forget. Sometimes, the rules meant to protect a community must also respect the people living in it. Because when power is used without care, the consequences can arrive in ways no one expects. Especially when the officer answering the call turns out to be the homeowner's wife. And that was a final twist in this unbelievable HOA story. If you enjoyed the drama, don't forget to subscribe, and share your thoughts. It really helps the channel grow.